TOP, and then also, of course, to the Minister of Police, Deputy Ministers of Police, the National Commissioner, and the entire team from the South African Police Service this morning. I haven't been able to check all the names. I know there are people still joining, so if there are members of the SANDF that have joined the meeting, I would like to welcome them too. Colleagues, I would then, before we begin, Babalwa, the committee secretary, the police committee secretary, has already indicated that we do have a quorum to continue. I just quickly want to check, Babalwa, before we start with further welcoming, etc., if there are any apologies we need to note.
Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Yes, Chair, I did receive the apologies from the following members. Miss Breitenbach, she's on a flight. Miss Kolabanat will be in the meeting, but she indicated that she's going to leave the meeting to go to the meeting. Miss Matisse, she's also in a meeting. She will also leave the meeting to go to the other committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Babalwa. Colleagues, before we kick off, I would just also like to welcome the chair from the Mineral Resources Committee, Honorable Maglaule, and then also the Honorable Gigaba, the co-chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, and so to the Honorable Pala, also co-chair at the Joint Standing Committee on Defence. Welcome them all. And then I would like to, without much wasting of time, just check if all the relevant persons are happy with the agenda. Can we adopt the agenda as is? Babalwa, would you just please flight it for us before we go through that? There we go. Can we move to adopt the agenda, colleagues? Honorable Schikkerling.
Good morning to you, Chairperson, and to all the colleagues online, and to the Minister and the Deputy Ministers. I hereby move for the adoption of the agenda as in front of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Schikkerling. Honorable Mokoena.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to everyone on the platform. I second, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mokoena. The agenda is then adopted as we see it before us. And then before we move to the Minister of Police, Acting Minister of Police, Minister Kachalia, and the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, I think just broad context, the reason for this short notice, for the specific meeting, and why it is so important for us to have this briefing from the South African Police Service, as well as the broader discussion around it, is specifically with a focus on what the President said during the State of the Nation address, and so to the Acting Minister of Police during their response to the SONA regarding the deployment of the SANDF in specific gang-ridden areas throughout the country, in both the Western Cape, Gauteng, also parts of the Eastern Cape, and I believe also potentially parts of KZN. We would go through that today, discuss it. I think there are many questions regarding the oversight process of this. How would command and control work? I know there's also another session with the SANDF, specifically with the Joint Standing Committee on Friday, which they have kindly invited us to attend, as well as the Police Committee, and I look forward to engaging there as well. I would like to encourage members to note the time for today, and that we do have that joint session on Friday too, which I think may give clarity on things that maybe we would not necessarily get to today, but also that when we engage in questions later, that we could have a fruitful and a constructive discussion. Before we kick off with a briefing, I would like to welcome the Minister of Police, the Acting Minister of Police, Minister Kachalia to then hand over to the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Masemola, and also just indicate to us how the briefing will be coordinated in terms of the South African Police Service, from where we will then engage in further discussion. Minister Kachalia, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to the members of the committee. I am joined by General Masemola, Lieutenant General Musikili, Major General Henkel, Major General Pokane, Brigadier Mate, Colonel Malambo, Colonel Lehare, Major General Rabi, and Major General Pinar, who is the Chief of Staff. Thank you for arranging this meeting. I think it is important that the issues concerning the deployment of the SANDF in areas affected by gang violence and illegal mining are ventilated in public. But can I also say that certain matters concerning the operations as well as tactical operational matters will not be discussed, but let's leave that to a question period when the Commissioner can make a decision about in response to specific questions. With that, I'm going to hand over to General Masemola. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Kachalia. We then hand over to General Masemola.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members and Minister of Police and DMs present. I will ask Colonel Dumi to just fly to the presentation while she's doing that. Honorable Chair and members, the deployment of the South African Police Service, the South African National Defence Force, is done in accordance with, as you are aware, the President announced that at the SONA of this current year. It's done in terms of Section 201(2)(a) of the Constitution, which says that only the President can employ the Defence Force in cooperation with the South African Police Service. As a force multiplier, we have, of course, submitted documents in that regard to the Minister of Defence for submission to the President, so that it can be assisted, especially, Honourable Chair, in areas where there is prevalence of gang violence, mostly your Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and Gauteng, and also in illicit mining affected provinces, which is actually almost all the provinces, excluding Western Cape. But we also further submitted papers in that regard for the employment to say it might be problematic if we do it on a piecemeal, but apply that we be assisted in case there are areas that require such support. For example, if you talk of areas like your Babatin or your Pilgrim's Rest in Mpumalanga, where we we do employ the South African Police Service to do operations there. But however, we would require that SANDF then to assist. SANDF is not going to do policing. They are just there to assist, to support, complement South African Police Service. To give a practical example, at a roadblock, you have got police members that will be doing searches. You'll have those that are doing guarding so that members cannot be attacked or injured. You'll have those that are doing what we call stopper group at the beginning and end of roadblock. So by using SANDF, it means you will have more SAPS members doing the real work than guarding the colleague, which then that function can be done by the SANDF, including, for example, when we do a cordon and search, we have police members that will do the cordon and police members that will do the physical search. Now, in the employment of this nature, you will have more police doing the real search, whereas the SANDF will do the cordon part. That's the practicality of taking it. I know that Chair said you want a tactical plan. A tactical plan belongs to tactical commanders, not even myself. So one cannot talk more about that, but to practicalize it more or less, that's how we mean it is to complement our efforts as you are carrying on doing our work. So I'm going to ask General Mark Hanger to take us through the presentation, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Honourable Chair, honourable members, the Minister of Police, and the National Commissioner and the DNCs. Am I audible?
Yes, perfect, Jerry. You can go ahead. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I apologize. My camera seems to be looking at the ceiling here in the office. I'm not accustomed to doing Zoom meetings, so I beg your indulgence in that regard. But I will continue with the presentation until we hopefully resolve this issue. I will be presenting in terms of the introduction made by the National Commissioner relating to the deployment of the SANDF in support of the South African Police Service. Can we get the next slide, please? The scope of the presentation relates directly, Honourable Chair, to the correspondence directed to the Minister and the National Commissioner. So we've built the presentation around those key questions that were asked, obviously within the limitations of revealing tactical information that we would prefer not to under these circumstances in the interests of operational security and in information security. So we'll be doing the introduction, the legal basis and the statutory provisions related to the SANDF deployment, which the National Commissioner has already alluded to, the prioritized hotspot areas and focus, then also the pre-deployment training, the rules of engagement and human rights, the command and control structures and coordination issues, there is resource allocation and operational objectives, and then our timeframes, reporting mechanisms and oversight safeguards, as well as our compliance and constitutional requirements. Can we get to the next slide? Thank you. In terms of, by way of introduction, the recent announcement by His Excellency the President during the State of the Nation address on the 12th of February revealed the imminent deployment of the SANDF. This action aims to assist the SAPS in combating high gangsterism and illicit mining that has escalated into organized criminal networks. The intention is, through this deployment, to give the police service space, together with our key JCPS stakeholders, to deal with the organized crime elements in those areas. So this deployment, this joint deployment, will give us space to function in that space and address the objective of disrupting and dismantling these organized criminal elements, these networks. In his address, the President emphasized that organized crime is now the most immediate threat to our democracy, our society, and our economic development. He directed that organized crime must be confronted by consolidating intelligence nationally, identifying priority syndicates, and deploying handpicked multidisciplinary intervention teams focused on dismantling these networks. Given the escalating nature of gang violence, illicit mining, and the organized crime and its detrimental impact on both the country's economic stability and community safety, this initiative has been launched. The employment of the SANDF is not only a strategic response, but the necessary measure to restore public confidence and secure safety environment for growth and investment in the affected provinces and ultimately South Africa as a whole. Can we go to the next slide, please? The legal basis, I will not repeat what the National Commissioner said for the sake of time. Needless, however, to say that it is constitutionally mandated for the President to deploy the SANDF domestically, as well as to bear arms domestically in this regard, in support of the objectives or the objects of the South African Police Service, with the exception, of course, of the investigation of crime. Section 19(3)(c)(2) of the Defence Act also provides for strategic guidelines for the deployment of the combined force structure elements, which is essentially our deployment in the designated provinces of the Republic in the combating of gangsterism and illicit mining. And this is a very key document. It's a document signed by both the National Commissioner and the Chief of the SANDF, which provides strategic guidelines to the deployment. So this document actually guides our conduct, our joint conduct, and the legal provisions that we all have to abide by. So this regulates the employment of the SANDF in service for cooperation with the SAPS in a manner that is lawful, proportionate, and constitutionally compliant, to ensure also the clarity of roles, command and control, accountability, and operational limitations during the authorized period of employment. And then also subsequent to that, these strategic guidelines are also directions for our operational commanders, which delineate the parameters within which force may be used, which we refer to as a force continuum, by combined forces during the conduct of this operation. Nonetheless, cognizance should be taken that although these guidelines may be construed as orders, a value judgment based on appropriate training is required in its application, and we'll reach the issue of the training in a few slides. If we look at the action areas where this deployment will occur, as already alluded to by the President and our Minister, it'll be in the Western Cape in terms of gangsterism on the Cape Flats. It'll also be addressing gangsterism in the Eastern Cape, specifically in the northern areas of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metropole, and in 2 police station areas in the Sarah Baartman district, being Humansdorp and Jeffreys Bay, which is actually a displacement in a way of what is happening in the northern areas of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metropole. Then also in Gauteng, illicit mining will be addressed primarily in Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and the West Rand districts. In the northwest, also dealing with illicit mining in the Platinum Belt, the so-called Kosh area, which is Klerksdorp, Orkney, Stilfontein, and Hartbeesfontein, and then also the Dr. Ruth Mompati district. And then finally in the Free State, illicit mining, also in the Goldfields area, which is the Welkom, Oudendaalsrust, and Virginia areas. Thank you. If we look at our pre-deployment training, our rules of engagement in human rights, we will be conducting, and we currently dealing with this issue in terms of preparation. We will be conducting mission readiness training. This is joint training that forms part of a critical phase of preparation during the mobilization stage that ensures that the force structure elements or our deployed resources are equipped for a specific deployment in a specific area or environment. It is specialized joint training that ensures that the deployed members of both the SAPS and the SANDF can function effectively as part of a combined task force. What is critical to this is that there will be dedicated police resources, members that will be assigned to the deployed sections, platoons, and companies of the South African National Defence Force, and they will obviously have to be trained up before deployment. So it's critical that we understand each other and we know what legal provisions cover us in that respect, also what our powers are. In terms of our joint training exercises, this will be conducted to ensure interoperability and coordination, which is critical to our objectives. And then in terms of the force continuum, the SANDF personnel will be trained in the SAPS use of force protocols and escalation procedures. That is critically important. Every member of the police service is trained in terms of how we apply force when necessary, from the point of arrest to if we have to go to more excessive levels of force, which we always attempt to avoid, of course. But importantly, the SANDF were essentially trained to go to war, have to understand that and act in that stead with the South African Police Service. They will also, for that matter, never be functioning or being deployed without the presence of SAPS officers in the joint deployment. Then communication protocols. That training includes communication procedures to ensure seamless interaction between the SANDF and SAPS units. That is in addition to the dedicated SAPS colleagues who will be deployed with them, because obviously this is a part of a bigger initiative and there will be other SAPS units deploying in a particular area, and there's got to be coordination amongst all of them as well. And then our strategic guidelines, they've already been developed by our legal officers between the two services, the Defence Force and the police, and they're in relation to the rules of engagement and compliance to basic human rights and operational conduct of the deployed combined force. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. If we look at our command and control and our structures and our coordination, as we normally work in all cases where we have joint deployment, each entity shall retain its distinct command authority throughout the operation, i.e. command of our own forces, as it is referred to. But when we are functioning in the presence of police officers on crime scenes and so forth, obviously the police take precedence and we lead the operation. That is one of the basic principles, and that is critically important that everyone understands that clearly. Irrespective of the rank of the police officer or the police member deployed, that person under those circumstances will take the lead. Operational coordination shall take place through joint operational and intelligence structures, the joints, as everybody is familiar with, at national, provincial, and local levels. So we have our NAT joints, our prof joints, and then we have our district and even station joints where relevant, which will give effect through Mission Area Joint Operational Centre, our so-called MAJOC, here in Pretoria, in Tshwane, and then our Tactical Joint Operational Centres where these combined deployments are taking place. From provincial level down, of course. The operation will be conducted with both designated SAPS and SANDF commanders to ensure unity of effort, based on joint command training for alignment, coordination, and synergized operations. So we need to prepare the joint deployment accordingly. And this takes time, unfortunately. It does take time. It's not something that happens immediately or overnight. The intent is to secure full cognizance, uniform interpretation, and strict compliance across all deployed elements, thereby minimizing ambiguity, preventing operational misalignment, and then also reinforcing coordinated execution in support of the approved mandate that has been provided by the President. In terms of our resource allocation and operation objectives, the resource allocation SAPS, the SANDF is deploying resources in line with the requirements of the police service, including specific allocations to the different action areas as requested by the National Commissioner through the Minister to the Minister of Defence. These operational objectives that we strive to achieve will be crime reduction in the designated action areas, the arrest of offenders, the recovery of illicit firearms, ammunition, and explosives, and also the confiscation of tools of trade and illicit narcotics. Tools of trade, for example, in the illicit mining space, includes the so-called pendukas, the yellow plant, and other equipment that is utilized in the course of illegal or illicit mining. In terms of our timeframes, Honourable Chair, and we are looking at the deployment being from the 1st of March and will conclude under the current mandate and direction on the 31st of March 2027, in other words, the end of the next financial year. In terms of our reporting mechanisms, use will be made of own department and joint mechanisms and channels. We have a very well-established joint system between ourselves and the South African National Defence Force through years of working together and experience in this regard. The NAT joints will report progress to our superior structures. Monitoring and evaluation will occur and be reported through project management processes under the auspices of an overarching national organised crime combating operation, which we refer to as KUBUZA. As previously indicated, this deployment will give us space for that to take place effectively in those areas. We will not go into the specific details of what that objective will be, unfortunately. Then CARA funding allocation requires quarterly reporting on key deliverables orientated to performance to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and that applies in this case as well. So there's a very stringent reporting protocol that we have to follow in this regard. Then our oversight safeguards will be as indicated above, as well as weekly reporting into the NAT joints ecosystem and the priority committee monitoring and reporting to the NAT joints, which will be established to oversee this deployment. Thank you. In terms of our compliance and constitutional mandate to human rights protection, these periodic operation legal compliance reports will have to be submitted through the chain of command to both the National Commission of the SAPS and the Chief of the SANDF. Members shall respect and protect the rights to dignity, life and freedom and security of the person. So the general public will be protected in this regard. And no member, be it SAPS or SANDF, shall then engage in any torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment, arbitrary arrest or detention, or discriminatory conduct in any way. Arrests where authorized shall be effected strictly in accordance with the Criminal Procedure Act. There is no other provision for making an arrest other than that. So the Criminal Procedure Act as amended will be our guide, as is done every day in this country by members of the South African Police Service. And if an arrest is effected by a SANDF member, which they can do under these circumstances, the suspect arrested must be handed over to SAPS without delay. When employed, a member of the SANDF who arrests and detains any person or seizes any article or object must, as soon as possible, hand that person, article or object over to the police or in any other appropriate functionary designated by relevant law. And the member who effects an arrest is legally expected, obviously, to depose an arrest statement during the normal course of process. Otherwise, that case will not stand or go through the courts. Thank you. Honourable Chair, honourable members, that is the sum of our presentation. I yield back to you with permission. Thank you.
Chairperson.
Thanks, Chairperson. That is the makeup of our presentation. I should just emphasize that, as I said, that we have covered the Republic, but it's not that we are going to deploy SANDF the whole country. It will be only as and when in areas which we regard as hotspots for either illicit mining and or gang areas where we will then deploy. Otherwise, that is our presentation. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you, General Hankel, as well, for the detailed presentation. I see the members have already started putting up hands. Before I start with the opportunity for questions, I see the hand of the Acting Minister of Police, Mr. Kachalia, is up. Minister, would you like to say something before we start engaging?
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to observe that DM Matale and Boshelo are also on the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, of course. And we will also, DM Matale and DM Boshelo, we will do the necessary engagement to later and give you an opportunity to. I've noted the hands of several members. Colleagues, for the sake of time, I'm going to do as we always do with the police committee, to allow 5 minutes per member for questions or comment. We will allow 5 or 6 people to raise their thoughts or questions, after which we will then hand over for answering and coordination by the South African Police Service. General Masemola, I hope it's okay that I then hand over to you to assist in coordinating response from the relevant persons. I've noted the, I think it's Honorable Klangwini. I don't see a full name, apologies for that. So the Honorable Member is welcome to start. I will list everyone else as we go. After the Honorable Klangwini, it is the Honorable Matthys, Honorable Selepe, Honorable Manye, and then Honorable Schikkeling, from where we will then go on to the Honorable Reverend Meshwe, Mwela, and so the list goes on. I'm not going to read all the names now. Please, once you've spoken, just lower your hand. And while we start, I'll put the timer on the screen so long. Honorable Klangwini.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to you, greetings to the ministers that are here and all of the generals in their respective rankings and members. Chair, let me first say thank you for the presentation. Though we have received the presentation a bit late and one couldn't engage thoroughly through it on a timeous basis. But I want to go straight into the deployment or the priority areas as it's stated on the presentation. And then in Eastern Cape, Northern areas, can we get maybe perhaps even a breakdown of all of these areas? But to just say Cape Flats and it's just a blanket approach, tomorrow we'll say, you will come back and say to us, no, but we didn't say in that specific area there will be deployment. Because there's areas like in your KwaZakhele in Port Elizabeth, which is also a hotspot area, and I don't see them on that list of deployment. So I think we need to get a full out, detailed into specific areas and specific, even if you break them up to sub-regions or municipalities like that, or zones, but we ought to know in which areas. Because I mean, there's an area here in Adlon Magistrate that they shoot witnesses as and when they want. So we want to know, is Adlon Magistrate, that specific area, also covered? And then on the illegal mining aspect, and the weapons and ammunition. Have you identified sites where this storage will be held? Because we know for a fact that the department have said in some of these areas they don't have the capabilities to remove these yellow plants and this big machinery that people are using for illegal mines.
Honourable Member, we've lost you there for a second.
Am I back? Can you hear me now?
There we go. There we go. Yes, you can go ahead.
I want to check the operation, where's going to be the storage sites of all of the illegal mining equipment and weapons and ammunitions. Have those areas been identified, and will it be in safekeeping, and do they have the capabilities of removing those equipments? And then the last part on the operation centers, and maybe perhaps, Chair, we ought to do an oversight to all of these operation centers as well to see that everything is in place, because we need to have proper time frames, because in the presentation the general have alluded to that some of these things take time. Unfortunately, we can't go on some of these things takes time. We need exact time frames as to when is what happening and when is this operation centers going to be set up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Matthys.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Minister, Acting Minister, Deputy Ministers, and all our generals, lieutenant generals. And yeah, good morning. Okay, mine is just a few comments to start off with, Chair. And, you know, it's a sad moment for us that we have succumbed to the fact that SAPS has failed, and the fact that we have to bring in the South African Defence Force. It's not a day that we should be celebrating, but nonetheless, we are positive that there has been some action taken in curbing the out of control crime that we have in our country. And I just want to make another comment, and before I go into the actual questions, is that the failure of SAPS has very little to do with resources, from what we have been seeing both in the ad hoc committee and also the commission. And Minister and our National Commissioner, this is about the weaponizing of the top-ranking officials in SAPS, because all they have done, and the majority of them from what we have seen, have been fighting fractional battles, weaponizing the criminal justice system instead of serving the people in the country. And we are here today, and we should be ashamed and we should be heartbroken that we have to send the South African Defence Force to be able to assist with something that SAPS is more than capable of doing, because they have demonstrated amongst themselves, our top leading officials, that they are very capable of doing the work, because they do it within their factions and against each other instead of against the criminals that are running the country. Having said that, I just want one of my questions is that, is there been any assessment or research done in the material conditions of all these different areas? Because I can't imagine us having the same approach or a blanket approach to all these areas, because crime is informed by material conditions, and the operational plan, which obviously we understand that we can't go into detail, should be informed by that. And there shouldn't be a blanket approach, because we might arrest some criminals, but because the material conditions of those areas are not also dealt with, it means that there's just going to be another layer. Criminality doesn't allow for a vacuum if we don't deal with the material conditions that that inform these high levels of criminality. We didn't speak to the issue of cost. So who's fitting this extra the extra bill, I mean, South African Defence Force and the deployment of that, and do we have the approximate cost? Because again, we don't want to start a project and then later on we find out that there's not enough budget to be able to do that, but also oversight in making sure whatever budget allocation is there, that it is it is properly used for what it is supposed to. Under the strategic guidelines, let's also deal with, I didn't see anything and I didn't go into too much detail with it, is on how are we going to ensure that we have intercepted corruption within the officials of SAPS and the South African Defence Force. Because as soon as we do this operation, the criminals that are in our SAPS and the criminals that are in the streets, they are already cahooting on how they are going to make money from this. So we'd also like SAPS to tell us what oversight is going to be given from our top ranking officials who are going to oversee this project to those that are on the ground to ensure that they're not making money out of this thing, because that's how cartels and the cartels work. And in terms of the mining areas, those mines that have been abandoned, what is going on with those mining houses? Because they were expected to make sure, in terms of when they are issued a license, they are there to make sure that those mines are closed properly. Yeah, so can we get input, because they should be assisting in covering costs for this, because we are doing work that they were supposed to do. It's bad enough that they come and steal our resources. Now we must still come and clean up and look after their mess. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Matthys. Then move to the Honourable Selepe.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Thank you very much. Chair, let me observe the protocol in the platform. I won't waste much time of greeting. Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is a comment, one comment, I think, in questions. First one, I just want to check how much is the budget allocated for this project? If we can be able to know the budget for this program, we want to know how much is it set aside for the whole operation. Two, the reporting mechanism, I think it can be proper for all the joint committees that are on the platform. On a monthly basis, we can get the report on ongoing process of this operation, so that we will be aligned with what's happening on the ground. And also, Chair, I just want to understand what is the difference between
recording stopped.
This, I think I should have been on record. I want to know.
Switch it on again now.
Yes, yes. What is the difference between Operation Vala Umkoti and this project? Because it's one may like think, why was Operation Vala Umkoti then stopped? Because we were actually waiting for the report of Operation Vala Umkoti. After everything has been done with the budget that was allocated, we can't have such an operation without being afforded an opportunity of the report. Who are the culprits? What are the consequence management of this culprit after being given that report? Till to date, we haven't received that. I think General is on the platform.
Recording in progress.
We can appreciate the report of Operation Valumkoti. We still want to know what happened to that one, because we cannot duplicate the project, because this is the duplication of Operation Valumkoti. Now we are doing the Operation Valumkoti 2.0, but we don't know what transpired with that one. How are we going to be confident with this one while we don't know what are the outcomes of the first one? We cannot keep on. This is like your Zondo commission, now is Matanga commission. We will have another commission. We cannot keep on having this thing duplicating one another, but there's no proper report that is telling the citizen of this country what is happening in the justice system, policing. Now we've included the side of, we need to know, we need to have the fruits of these operations. The last one is that the Department of Mineral, I think it needs to take this thing serious in the presence of both SANDF and police. The rehabilitation in the areas that are being labeled as a hotspot, they need to apply something that can assist people who are South Africans. And if it's a telling them, or is a place where they are mining, to do it as a small scale or artisanal mining, and give it to people who are local and give the relevant documents so that they can rehabilitate that area in a proper way, not these criminal activities that are going on in all the areas. Can the Department of Mineral and Petroleum assist in this space, that people who are there can be aligned and work in a proper, not those criminals. I'm talking of people who are staying in that particular area, can be aligned and be given the relevant document to rehabilitate the area if there's a telling them, and go there and check what can be made as the artisanal mining. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Selepe. I then move to the Honourable Manye, followed by the Honourable Schikkerling, after which you will then get some response from SAPS before moving on to the next round. Honourable Manye.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I must just beforehand just say that my questions are all going to be directed to the Minister. I noticed that when the generals were speaking here, they were very circumspect, not to say things that they don't want to say. So I'm not going to go to anything operational. So all these questions are for the political principals. Greetings to the Minister and his team and everyone else on the platform. I've got about 10 questions, Chair, but I'll go through them very quickly. First one, issues of maybe failure of police capacity. Number one, Minister, given that the Constitution assigns the primary responsibility of combating crime to the SAPS, what specific failures within SAPS necessitated the deployment of SANDF to perform functions ordinarily expected of the police? That's number one. Number two, the exit strategy. Since the deployment is scheduled to run until 31 March 2027, what measurable indicators will determine whether the SANDF deployment is successful, and what clear exit strategy exists to prevent indefinite militarization of police? Number three, considering that organized crime syndicates and illicit mining have operated for years in the identified hotspots, what intelligence failures allowed these criminal networks to entrench themselves before resorting to military deployment? Number four, what is the total projected cost of deploying SANDF to this operation, including personnel, logistics, and operational costs, and which department will ultimately carry the financial burden? Number five, in terms of just command and accountability, a question which I think the Chair alluded to when he opened the meeting. Since both SANDF and SAPS retain their own command structures while coordinating through joint structures, who bears ultimate operational accountability should there be unlawful actions, operational failures, or civilian harm during the deployment? Number six, what preventative strategies have been implemented alongside this deployment to ensure that criminal syndicates do not simply relocate to other provinces not currently listed as priority areas? Number seven, in relation to illicit mining operations in Gauteng, Northwest, and the Free State, how many kingpins or organized crime syndicate leaders have been identified and targeted, as opposed to the continued arrest of low-level illegal miners? And here, I'm not asking for anybody to name names. Give me a number, 0 to 10. That's all I'm looking for, just to guarantee that you actually know that it's that one, and you're working on arresting. See now this phone. Sorry, Chair. I know my time is ticking. Okay. Okay. Question 8. What mechanisms are there in place to prevent operational duplication or conflict between SANDF and SAPS units, given the dual command structure described in the briefing? Question 9. What independent oversight mechanism exists to monitor compliance with human rights standards during this deployment, particularly given the use of military personnel in civilian law enforcement roles? The last question. Does the deployment of the SANDF signal that the government has effectively considered that SAPS alone is unable to deal with organized crime? And if so, what long-term reforms are planned to rebuild SAPS operational capacity? When this phone got cut, Chair, I was just dealing with that question 7, that in relation to illicit mining operations in those 3 provinces, how many kingpins have been found? But I think I got that question. Okay, I think that's all. So those are the 10 questions for me. And again, I repeat, this is just for the minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Manye. Honourable Schikkerling.
Good morning, Chairperson. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good morning once again to everybody on the platform, the Minister, the Deputy Ministers, and all the SAPS and SANDF members. Chair, I just have a few questions. I would like to know which specific threat assessment triggered this deployment, what intelligence product informed it, and what measurable escalation justified invoking Section 2012A. And more importantly, Chair, what precise operational failures within the SAPS required military support? Because it is an indictment on the SAPS that the SANDF had to be called in. Is that the collapse of the crime intelligence? We know that there's a massive detective shortage. Is it perhaps that? Is it the inability to penetrate organized syndicates? Are there constraints in the public order policing? We'd like to know what that deficit is. And then secondly, Chair, is this intervention merely a short-term stabilization, or is there a broader intelligence-led prosecution-driven strategy that they're going to use to dismantle organized crime networks permanently? It doesn't help that we put people in place, the SANDF, for 13 months, which is also quite an odd amount of time. But you know what is the broader picture on this? And can we please have an indication of what the baseline crime figures in the identified hotspots are for the 1st of March? And are there percentage reduction targets being set? Because then we can actually go back and see that this is yielding results. Because without KPIs, this risks being optics rather than strategy. I mean, where is the strategy if we don't have proper KPIs? Chairperson, on the ground, who holds the operational authority in this joint operation? Is it going to be the SAPS or the SANDF? I heard the minister say, or it was the general, I'm not sure, that the SANDF and the SAPS will always be together when they do these operations. But Chairperson, most stations have one working van over the weekend on a end of the month weekend. They don't have the capacity. So how is the SANDF going to be accompanied by the SAPS if we don't even have enough officers to cover areas now? Are we going to withdraw officers from other areas and bring them into these areas? Because then we are going to strengthen capacity in certain areas, but we most certainly are going to weaken capacity in other areas. And that is really a problem for me. If we don't know who holds the operational authority, What is going to happen if there's an unlawful arrest or wrongful detention or a civilian casualty, because that happens? Who's going to ultimately carry this accountability? Is it going to be the SAPS? Is it going to be the SANDF? Is it going to be the NAT joints? We want one clearly identifiable, accountable authority. Otherwise, we're working in the dark here. And under what precise circumstances may the SANDF members discharge firearms in civilian areas? Because we know that happens. If excessive force is alleged, who's going to investigate this? Is it going to be IPID? Is it going to be the military police? Is there going to be a joint mechanism? We need there can't be any ambiguity, Chairperson. We need to know what is happening, because soldiers are now going to operate amongst civilians. And their mandate is very different to that of the SAPS. Chairperson, more boots on the ground don't really always equal justice, and that's very clear with what's going on currently in our country. How does this deployment strengthen investigative capacity and not just visibility? How is the SANDF going to integrate with detectives, crime intelligence, and the DPCI? Because we know that there's a deficit there. And then I would like to know, if we have this discussion with the Department of Justice, are there going to be specialized investigators and prosecutors that are going to be assigned to ensure that arrests actually translate into successful prosecutions? Because it doesn't help we have all these investigations, but there's no prosecutions at the end of the day. I mean, how will the dockets and intelligence gathered during these joint operations be managed to preserve evidentiary integrity? We can't just have mass arrests, but this collapses in court, which is something we see happening every single day. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Schikkerling. Colleagues, I'm then going to hand over to General Masemola for response. General, we have about 25 minutes for response, after which we will then go back to the honourable members for further questions. The next round will start with the Honourable Reverend Meshwe. General Masemola.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and members. Honourable Chair, we had Operation Valumkodi, where we did ask for extra budget last year or 2 years ago from 2023. And what we then did in the execution of this operation, there's quite a number of successes we achieved. We will bring the report of Valumkodi at this forum, and it came to an end. But what we realized then is that the problem of illegal mining is, of course, still continuing, and we definitely need numbers. We use the capacities that we have, mostly your public order police, which is responsible for crowd management. They are the ones that are also assisting in the fighting illicit mining and your gang violence. And that capacity, Honourable Chair, is limited. And the areas that we cover for illicit mining is quite wide areas. As I said, out of the 9 provinces, you have only 1 province that doesn't have illicit mining, which is the Western Cape. And most of the provinces are affected by this illicit mining. So what we are saying is we are going to implement a national organized crime model that we are starting implementing from 1st of April, where we'll also come here and present that, where we'll have dedicated teams dealing with specific crimes, small teams dealing with specific crime. For example, your carjacking, your extortion, your cross-border vehicle crime, your drugs, your truck checking, and all of that organized crime dimensions. We will have teams doing that. That strategy on its own is different. This is just part of it. So the deployment of SANDF is there to stabilize the areas while the rest of the teams will be dealing with the organized crime with a view to dismantle those organized crime syndicates. So that is the main objective, that stabilization happen within the gang areas and the illicit illegal mining areas, while organized crime teams deals with both the gangs and all other forms of organized crime. So in terms of time frame, yes, we are looking for the financial year to begin. We are starting piloting this month. We are still doing some collabs. We will start pilot this month of March for the organized crime implementation model, both in Gauteng and Western Cape, but we'll go full-scale implementation of the organized crime model from 1st of April. But for that part to happen, which we still haven't briefed you on, we need to stabilize these certain areas. So the South African Police Service then, with the assistance of the SANDF, it will not be a member from a police station that is drawn to go and work with the SANDF, because that would create more shortage at the police station. It's mostly your specialized units that works with the South African National Defence Force, like your NIU Special Task Force, your POP, that will deploy with the SANDF. In terms of budget, we have assistance of 1 billion rand that we have seen, I think, announced by Minister at various forums. That is not for SANDF, but 1 billion is for implementation of the National Organized Crime Plan. And part of that plan, small part of that plan, is this South African National Defence Force deployment with SAPS. But the 1 billion does not pay for the SANDF. SANDF have their own budget, which I would not know how much it is. But out of the 1 billion, we'll have, I'm sure General can speak to that, we'll have something like almost 300 million. That will be part of the stabilization operation with the SANDF, whereas the rest will be used for organized crime. The national joints ultimately will be in charge of the day-to-day operation of, it will be in charge of all the operations between both the SANDF and the South African Police Services. The strategic guideline for joint deployment protocol that General Mark Unkel spoke about earlier is that operationally, South African Police Service will be taking operational command. But of course, within that protocol, in case the members of SANDF, they go out of, act out of that specific protocol, obviously, the specific members of SANDF will then be responsible, and the military police will then deal with them appropriately in that regard. With regard to derelict or ownerless mines, I think that will be best answered from the Department of Mineral Resources. I'm aware that there are shafts that they did close in certain areas, especially in Gauteng. So I think that can be, including the, how can local people benefit out of that? I think that can best be answered from that department. What is the difference between Parliamentary and this? Parliamentary was the operation we had in the past 2-3 years, which we still can't bring the report. What we are saying is that illicit mining is a problem that is there. It's not going away. So hence, we are doing this deployment. And in the process, we are going to do a research and see what is it that is required. Should we think we arrive at a time where we should establish units that will specifically deal with this, be on a full-time basis, work on illicit mining. because for now, we are using POP that is meant for crowds. We are using it for this illicit mining. Who bears responsibility? I think I spoke about that. As we go along, there are kingpins. During Valamkot, we arrested about some of the kingpins, about 8 of them. As we are going on now, we are going to identify further people that are involved, and as the investigation goes on, we will be able to investigate as to identify as to how many were and how far they are involved. What informs the deployment? What informs the deployment is that we have come to realize that we want to deal with organized crime. Not having members that are carrying various dockets, carrying a docket for murder and a docket for, let's say, extortion. So the new organized crime model that we implement, it will be small teams provincially where the threat is, because threats are different in all provinces. So that those teams, as they concentrate on the specific dimensions we call the specific crimes. So while that happens, part of our day-to-day gang shootings and zamazamas will be stabilizing areas. Hence, we want that there should be stabilization of this area so that communities can stay free around these mining areas because of this stabilization. And yes, what informed us is that the problem of illicit mining and gang violence is not subsiding, it is still there. So we want to deal with it specifically with a view to terminate it. And while we are doing that, we need a supplementary support system. Is it a short term or? Okay, yeah, I think I described the strategy as what we are doing. Who hold operational responsibility? I think I dealt with that. Yeah, let me allow General Msikiri to answer some of the questions. Thank you on the questions.
Thank you, General. General Msikiri. Welcome back, General Msikiri, after a full day at Parliament yesterday.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and good morning to yourself, Sir. Good morning to the members of the committee, to the Minister of Police, the National Commissioner and Deputy Ministers. Let me observe the protocol. Chair, I know you have given 20 minutes. National Commissioner has covered me widely, I must say, Chairperson, just to reassure the committee in terms of the operational areas, it's the daily targets that every day there will be an identification of areas. I think on the broader strategy, the identification and indication, it's that one that has been communicated in the plan and the strategy that the National Commissioner is referring to. That is the broader organized crime strategy. So from time to time, when there is a need to move, we will move to the areas that are affected, doing so to also ensure that we respond to the displacement. I think one question was on the where there will be no deployment of the SANDF. How are we going to ensure that these criminal elements do not spill over or displace to those areas? That we have put in place in the broader strategy. This was just the extrapolation as per the request to only focus and look at the areas where the SANDF will be deployed, but the whole country will be covered over and above the areas that have been identified. The issues on the human rights, I think the strategy or the plan, this report, Chairperson, was specifically looking or the request was that we need to identify what is going to be focused on or to be taken care of in terms of preserving the human rights, and it's covered on the presentation. But as the operation is ongoing, we have indicated that the basic of the plan is to do the joint training. That is done in so much so that we take all the deployees or all the operational elements through the training and what would be required of them as they operate. Of course, National Commissioner have alluded to the fact of the command and control. SANDF is here to assist. I think it has been communicated that their role is to assist the police. Therefore, on domestic operations is the SAPS operation, and it will be coordinated and managed as such. Nat Joins, chairperson, will recall that alongside the SAPS chairmanship, it is the SANDF and intelligence communities. I just want to also reiterate on the issues of coordination of, or the issues of investigation, prosecution, and collection of intelligence on the broader strategy. This is clearly outlined, Chairperson. I think General Angel did allude to the fact that the issue is on operations or on visible policy or visibility in regards to this, but the broader strategy is also looking at the investigation, collection of intelligence, and Dr. Sowe will recall that this deployment happens within the cluster. Therefore, all the cluster departments are on board. They have been consulted, they have contributed on the development of the plan. So there are clear guidelines or activities that will be undertaken in terms of prosecution, in terms of intelligence collection on a day-to-day basis, and there are dedicated teams of each department, Chairperson. I think that
Please portfolio, this
that
portfolio,
will be my
this meeting will probably go on till midnight.
Apologies, Honourable Kala Barnard, you're not muted. Sorry, General Musikiri, please continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I was concluding, but to also reiterate on the last response on the issues of the budget on Volume 40, National Commissioner have indicated that Volume 40 or illegal mining it's continuing until it is totally terminated, or because if you just study it, we have noticed that it resurfaces. Hence, the operations are continuing. They have not been stopped. But in terms of accountability, Chairperson, I'm adamant that we have been presenting even to the portfolio committee. If that did not happen, Chairperson, we are having those reports. We are accounting in terms of the budget that was allocated to Volume 40 and what is left of Volume 40 that will be finalized with the continuous Volume 40 operation. So we are still operating. It may not be at the same scale when Volume 40 operation started, but in terms of presenting on the utilization of the budget, even this one that General Masemola have just indicated that we have received a budget. It is dedicated to organized crime, and these interventions on the deployment of the SANDF and SAPS at certain areas, it's part and parcel of that broader strategy. Where budget is allocated, there will always be accountability, and we will come back to the committee and account on the utilization of the budget and what that budget was utilized or requested for. If Chairperson will given the opportunity to do so, but reports are available and we present them from time to time. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, on the storage of machinery and yellow plant, we do not have a uniform, universal approach. In certain areas where there is sufficient space in police stations, we keep those plants at police station premises. And in some areas, we arrange with local mines. We store those machineries there until cases are finalized. It's something that we really cannot have a uniform. It depends from area to area how we store it. And in terms of corruption, we have a counterintelligence team that will continuously be looking after the operators. And for the organized crime strategy that we are going to implement, members that are going to work there, they are going to be screened, and continuously this team of counter will always be looking after them as they operate. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson.
Thank you, General. I just heard Chairperson. I don't know who asked. Apologies for that.
Apologies, it's me, Chair. I thought I forgot.
Oh, there we go, General.
Yes, I
Sure.
forgot on that on the issues of the SAPS 13 and confiscated over and above what the National Commissioner has responded to is the issue of the firearms that those confiscated are dealt with in accordance with our SAPS 13 protocols, and from time to time, when we do the destruction of firearms, we make it public, Chairperson, and we do indicate how many of these firearms were confiscated from which operation, and it will apply in this implementation of this organized crime strategy, Chairperson. Of course, Honorable Shikeleng, in terms of the KPIs and the crime levels, the measuring tool always will be with the implementation of the operation, that what was the situation before the deployment, what is happening in the period of the deployment, and what will happen afterwards. So definitely in our plans, Chairperson, we have considered to do that measuring tool or a system to put it in place so that we can measure what the deployment, what the effect or impact of the deployment is on the operation that is being adopted. Thank you. I see we still have 5 minutes that we have saved. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, General. Both General Mozekidi and General Masemola. Acting Minister Kachalia, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra time as well for your response.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to the members for your questions. There were some that were specifically directed at me, but I found all the questions very interesting. They're the right ones to ask. And they're also assisting me actually to focus on the right issues as we go forward. So first, I would like to. Mr. Mani asked me several very pertinent questions. In fact, I would appreciate it if he emailed me those questions because they were very precise. I'm not sure I can deal with all of them individually, but I will try and respond. And of course, the issues also raised by Member Shikeleng were very important, and they are ones that I am focused on, at the issue of how we deal with illegality, how we ensure that both the police and the army act within their mandates and within the law, and so forth. Now, I would like to start by stressing a point that Major General Henkel made in his opening remarks, and then reinforced by the National Commissioner, as well as Deputy Commissioner Musikidi. And I would ask the committee to begin to assist us looking ahead, looking at what must be doing going forward, because clearly there are, let me put it this way, there are challenges that SAPS needs to address. And there are capacity issues that have long plagued policing in the country, concerning, for instance, detective services, crime intelligence, and so forth. The questions we now face is what we're going to do about them. The reform agenda, the reset agenda. And that is recognized by the leadership of the South African Police Service. So the deployment of the SANDF is not being presented as a panacea, as a magic bullet. Alongside, as the National Commissioner has said, the deployment of the army as a stabilization strategy, or to make reference to Major General Henkel's introductory remarks, is to create space for the implementation of an organized crime strategy. That was adopted by the Cabinet about a month ago. It's in the process of being implemented, as Commissioner Masamola's responses indicate. There are going to be very serious challenges in implementing an organized crime strategy. And I believe that the committee's oversight responsibility will assist us tremendously in the implementation phase of an organized strategy that is only recently adopted. Because the implementation of that strategy is going to require a significant reorganization, resourcing, recapacitation of the South African Police Service. I would say this, one way to think about this is that this country is in its FBI moment. We need a new paradigm, and there is a new paradigm embodied in this organized crime strategy that has been only recently adopted. Why do I say this? I think that organized crime, and this is a global phenomenon, has evolved, that has, in a way, overtaken policing structures in many countries because it's transnational, because it's diversified, because it's taking on worrying characteristics of infiltration of law enforcement agencies, political structures, market sectors, and so forth. So the challenges we face as a country lie ahead. And the important questions that we've been asking over the years must now be recast as questions about how to implement an effective organized crime strategy, a new paradigm. That new paradigm, as the Commissioner was indicating, has to shift from a focus on individual crimes to assess patterns and networks so we can dismantle the cartels. It would not be correct to say that the country is currently in a position to dismantle the cartels. We are trying to put in place a strategy and the capabilities that will enable us to do so, which is not to say that we don't have any capabilities, that we haven't had some success, that we haven't been responding proactively and reactively to this evolving challenge. But you can see when you're dealing with anti-gang violence, and you're dealing with gang violence, you're dealing with illegal mining, that high visibility strategies, Valam, while important, and I would make the same point about the deployment of the army, are not sufficient. Why? Because what we need is to implement an organized crime strategy. We also have to recognize the limits of law enforcement, because the focus also has to be on prevention. The focus also has to be on an all-government approach. When, for instance, we're talking about illegal mining, clearly the regulatory and policy issues also need to be addressed. The responsibility can't only be thought of as a responsibility of the police service. So I think there needs to be an all-government approach. There needs to be a focus on prevention, and the oversight process should assist us to address this problem of organized crime holistically through an all-government, all-society approach, which focuses both on enforcement, better, more focused, more strategic, more intelligent-driven enforcement plus prevention. Now, Member Money, as I said, I found the questions very pertinent, very precise. These questions about the specific failures of the South African Police Service, I would plead that we reframe the question. It's an important question, but the question that lies before us as a country, as a nation now, is what reform, which is perhaps the last question that Member Mani put. What do we need to do to strengthen the South African Police Service? To address the obvious limitations that we currently have in addressing organized crime, which I maintain is a new challenge, or is an evolving challenge, for which we need new thinking, new capabilities. So clearly there needs to be a focus on better investigations. We have to restore the capabilities of the crime intelligence function, because there are clearly deficits there that need to be addressed, so that we can deal with the syndicates, because this is syndicated crime. We're not just dealing with two individuals, one perpetrator and one victim. Now, there were questions about KPIs, monitoring and evaluation. There were questions about accountability and oversight. There were important questions that Member Mateus asked about how we deal with corruption, because any organized crime strategy, the implementation of that strategy itself is going to be vulnerable to capture. I was reading an article based on a report that's just come out in Canada, where the report is about the infiltration of police services there by cartels, law enforcement. So they recognize that they have to respond to these new threats, and they need a new paradigm. We are faced with the same situation here. So this question about corruption in the police service, and of course we've had levels of corruption across the organization. The South African Police Service, regrettably, is not unique in this regard. We've had a problem of capture in this country across many institutions, and we are now trying to deal with those problems. But if you set up your response to organized crime has to be insulated from capture. So there are design questions that need to be addressed in order to ensure that the institutions, and I maintain that what we now need to be thinking about are not only new capabilities, but new institutions, hence the FBI analogy, which themselves are insulated from criminal capture. So I thought that question by Member Mateus was an extremely important one. Now, what is the role of the ministry in the implementation of the organized crime strategy? I am working on 3 proposals. They are fairly completed and articulated, but I haven't taken them yet through all the processes. Okay, but I'm going to share them with the committee to give an indication of where we are going. First of all, we have developed a monitoring tool which clearly identifies what we need to be assessing as the ministry in the criminal justice cluster, because we are part of a cluster and we need a criminal justice approach, not just a policing approach, what we're going to be monitoring. I have a draft proposal, which I haven't finally considered in the ministry. I haven't yet presented it to the DMs, for instance, but that work has been done. Second, I have a proposal to set up a multi-stakeholder council that will monitor the implementation of the strategy. Multi-stakeholder, making it possible to bring in stakeholders from the outside of the police and outside even of the government. Some opportunity to bring together experts in the field of organized crime, as well as stakeholders to monitor. And what I think that council should be able to draw on what I would call open source information, because there is abundance of information out there. We can see that from the excellent work that some journalists have done on cartels and organized crime, on the basis of which we will make this kind of embed and institutionalize a monitoring mechanism. And of course, that mechanism will report to me, possibly to myself and the Minister of Justice. We could also report to Parliament, to this committee, and create some connection with to be able to report to the President. After all, the President is taking a much more proactive role in relation to safety and security, as we saw from the SONA address. And finally, the members will recall that the National Planning Commission made a proposal that we should establish some kind of governance board to assist the National Commissioner and the Minister with professionalization, with the reset agenda. Now, I can report to the committee that the Civilian Secretariat has already presented me with a draft piece of legislation. I am committed to implementing that proposal and ensuring that that legislation is enacted as soon as possible. But because that's going to take time, I am considering setting up an interim governance board with more or less the same functions, but in addition, to assist the ministry and the department with the implementation of the Madlanga Commission recommendations, which is due in the next month or so. So I'm not waiting for the whole Madlanga process to be concluded before putting in mechanism that will assist to implement a reform agenda, which is clearly needed. Anybody watching the ad hoc committee and the Madlanga Commission will have come to the conclusion that what we need is change. What we need is reform. What we need is a reset agenda. And I would ask in conclusion, Chairperson, and to the committee members, that the committee then works with the department, with the National Commissioner, and myself, going forward, to assist us to think clearly about how to implement an organized crime strategy, and at the same time to assist us in the oversight and monitoring process, which is going to be critical. And I would concur with the National Commissioner that organized crime strategy, therefore, should be presented to this committee as soon as possible. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister Kachalia. I would just like to check before we go back to the members, I don't any longer see the hand of the Honorable Meshwe. I just want to double check if he's still on the platform.
Yes, I'm still on the platform.
You can go ahead, Reverend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. May I make a special request? I should have been at international relations. May I request that my questions be answered and I be released to join another committee meeting, please?
Honorable Meshwa, I think it depends on how long those questions are. I think go for the questions, let's see, and then we'll take it from there. Otherwise, we can share the response with you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to all the ministers that are there and the police. The SANDF, I would want to know when they are deployed to assist the SAPS, whether the SAPS briefs them on the challenges they have, the needs the police have, and what is expected of the SANDF to do so that where the police were failing, they will not fail again. I think we need to be open and the police need to be open. This is where we are failing. It is not unwise to use the word failing. We are failing to do 1, 2, 3. SANDF, we have sought your assistance. Can you please help in 1, 2, 3? And the second question is that at the roadblocks we hit, that the SANDF will be watching and guiding and guarding the police who will be doing operational work, such as searching. Now, as this is not a normal situation for the SANDF to be at roadblocks, but it is a kind of an emergency because the assistance is needed. Would it not work, would it not be helpful to the police if the SANDF is given some limited powers and some emergency powers, so that if they arrest, that those they've arrested can also be taken to court without bringing in the police? I do understand that it is a requirement, it's a law, but this is an emergency situation. When you have the police requiring the assistance of the SANDF, it is an emergency situation. And my third question, while the police or the SANDF has to find a policeman around to give the details of what has happened, what is the time frame that the police should be informed by the soldier who did arrest for that case not to be compromised before the courts? What is the time frame that is expected? And my next question is that when the SANDF is employed to assist, we heard that they can arrest. They can arrest. But is it not waste of manpower for the SANDF to be with the police just watching them or guarding them while they are doing operational duties? Is it not? Is that job, can that job not be done, for an example, by security companies? I want to know if the minister or the department have thought of using security companies, because in some police stations, we know that security companies are being used. Then the next question, heavy machinery that is used in some mines by those who are involved in illegal mining. The question is, how did that machinery, heavy machinery, get to those mines in the first place? The many members of the community should have seen those machines being taken there. And the police themselves should be aware that there are machines that are being taken to the mines. And the police should find out who is doing that and why. The issue of trust comes in. So my last question is, the issue of trust comes in. Do the police believe that the community does not give them the information because the members of the communities don't trust them? And that obviously has to be worked on. The trust between the police among themselves has to be restored, and the trust between the police and the members of the community has to be restored. And I want to know, what are the plans to do that, and how is that going to be done so that going forward, members of the community can trust their police, so that when they see a criminal act, they will take their phones, they will go to the police station knowing that an effect will be arrested without them being implicated or being exposed to the criminals out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Meshwe. Honorable Mwela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to the Minister, DM Matale and Dr. DM Bushielo, and also the National Commissioner and all the generals in the office in the meeting, and also honorable members. Honorable Chair, I think first and foremost, we need to commend the bold decision that have been taken by President Cyril Ramaphosa for ensuring that he responds to the call that have been made by the people of the Cape Flats for a very long time, that they have been tortured by the gangsters and organized crime cartels that have been destroying and dealing with the livelihood of our people in this area. And also the millions of and billions of rand that have been lost through illegal mining to the economy. This bold decision of deploying the army to come and assist and to protect the people and to stop the havoc that has been happening, it is indeed commendable. I think most of the issues that I had an issue on, they've been addressed by honorable members, but I want to check, when the National Commissioner was in fact remarking, he indicated clearly that the deployment of soldiers is not to replace policing. The police will continue to do their duty. What they will do is to support the work of the police as and when they do. He gave an example when they're doing the seizure and says that they will be there to monitor. But I want to check, in case where there will be a response from these gangsters and cartels in terms of ammunition, what assurity are we having that the soldiers will not respond if there is that particular response from the police? And what are the mechanisms that are put in place to ensure that the government does not suffer on litigation through this process of deploying soldiers? Most of that we have seen during COVID, that when we deployed soldiers, there was a serious torture on civilians. Which mechanisms are deployed to ensure that the government does not lose money through litigations of the brutality and other reactions that will have come to this particular deployment, which is very strategic? What is it that they are put in place in practical to say, this is what we're planning and this is how we're going to execute these particular issues? Because the National Commissioner was very clear to say the issue of strategy does not solemnly lie on their heads. It is on a particular command that we know soldiers, in their operations. How will the South African Police Service ensure that they take charge and ensure that there is a strict monitoring in the operations that they will be executing to protect the people and to ensure that they eradicate this gangsterism? So another issue is that, Chair, when we are exposing these plans here, we know that in terms of crimes, it moves from one place to the other. There are those who are already now trying to move because we are targeting particular areas. They are now looking at moving from one area to the other. What is the plan that they are having to make sure that there are roadblocks in between these areas that have been identified here, so that we keep them now, because we know after they are following these particular proceedings and they know the plans that we are having and which areas are we targeting. Some of them now, they are trying to move from these areas into another area because we know we cannot eradicate this particular behavior once and for all. What are the plans that are in place to make sure that they keep this particular movement that will be happening from one area to the other? So that will be my submissions. I think most of the questions have been covered by the members and the response that have been given. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mwela. Honorable Shalembe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Also, the presentation. Chair, just looking at that, in some cases, you find the soldiers, in the non-prioritized areas where they are not supposed to be. And also, some soldiers are found, in the shebeens, with the uniform. And then how do you control that? And is it allowed to do so that soldiers can go to shebeens with the army uniform and also going around, in the shopping malls with the firearms, pointing to the people? And also, in provinces like Northwest, army was deployed, but I don't know if maybe we will have, an answer. What was the progress on that, whether it worked or did not work? Because we are told that, some miners did not come out of when they were ordered to do so. Now, in these cases, what is that is new that, the army will use to assist the police? And how are the police planning to ensure that, when the soldiers come, are able to get, these miners who do not want to come out from the home? Also, I want to know, when are we going to see the SAPS being able to maintain law and order in the country, in itself? Or, the soldiers, have lost, their confidence in the community, but just want to know, when are we going to see that? And also, is it because the SAPS, do not have enough, human resources or also the equipment to do the work? If maybe I can get the clarity, because it can't be that, the soldiers will be deployed, in the country. Just imagine now, if these things are happening in all the provinces, it means now all the soldiers will be deployed and utilized, within the country. Now, I just want to know, is it because the SAPS can't afford to do it on its own? Is it due to, a human resources problem, or is it the equipment that they have, to do it, or is it the issue of the budget? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Legwete.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm the chair of the Portfolio Committee for Defense. I was supposed to start my meeting, but I had to put some few minutes aside. I would want us to, firstly, to look at our meetings. I don't think it's correct for us to hold such a strategic meeting on virtual with our cybersecurity infrastructure being porous in the country. So even the organized crime strategy, when we deal with it, I would request that we don't deal with it on virtual, but we have a physical meeting. As the Portfolio Committee, we have agreed that we accept the directive of the President to bring the National Defense Force as a prerogative that belongs to him in terms of Section 201 of the Constitution of the Republic. But there are points we would want to ask, preferably, just to check as to whether were the previous deployments integrated with the long-term policing reform? Because we need a long-term policing reform on the detective side, on the crime intelligence, on the forensics, and also a possibility of bringing something between the police and the National Defense Force, either FBI or SWAT or something, because as the defense, we can't do civilian policing, but equally civilian policing cannot fight organized crime when it has high caliber weapons like your illicit mining, illicit drugs. They have serious high caliber weapons. And you can't say a policeman with a pistol must go and fight somebody who has an AK-47. The second question was the prosecutional capacity strengthened to ensure convictions in the past. Because we know in every operation, whether it's Valumkoti, whether it's Wanya Tsotsi or Okai Mulao, we get arrested. But are those arrests followed by serious conviction? So in this case, it will mean that there needs to be an interministerial committee to ensure the implementation of the directive by the president. In particular, we must include SARS, we must include Department of Justice, especially prosecution, Border Management Authority, Department of Home Affairs in a joint process, because I'll tell you why Home Affairs and PMA are important in this regard. Thirdly, where the intelligence failures corrected, we see in commissions how our intelligence failures came about. When we deal with the organized crime strategy starting from 1st of April, were all the intelligence failures corrected? Because it has become very clear that we may be talking to generals here, generals who are captured by cartels. Are we safe? Is the country safe under their leadership? Those are things that we need to answer to restore the confidence. Whether the directive of the president that they must go for lifestyle audit, was it done? Were they screened? Were they vetted? You can start the project on the 1st of April. Are they the correct people to start it? It sounds very problematic, but it's a matter we need to talk to so that all of us can be confident about what we do, what we are doing. Were the economic drivers of gang recruitment addressed? I mean, issues related to the gangs. Many gangs in our country are linked to security companies. So there will be a need for audit of security companies who have their licenses or permissions through the SIRA Act, because gangs have seen a gap in the SIRA Act, and they are using that to go around with high caliber weapons, which they use them in a pretext of a security company, when on the other side they commit crime, which they can use any other light, whether white light or blue light, and use those things through their security companies to move or do any of their illicit work. So how do we deal with that thing? Were illegal mining network dismantled, even their financial network, is that dismantled? And that also is a problem, because some of them also have found that gap in the Security Industries Act, and they are using it to undermine our authority as a state. I think it's a matter that we need to work on, including the improvement of the whole operation to include artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Because currently our infrastructure, the way it is poor, international syndicates find it very simple to enter our country. But secondly, international syndicates, they know South Africa is a safe haven because of the human rights culture, where you can commit crime and not even face death, where you can commit crime, serve a particular term and be released, and the money is not recouped. So that's why SARS is going to be important here, so that you break the neck of illicit economy. Whoever gets arrested, we need to review them for tax, income tax. They must explain how they have their wealth, and you can only do it faster through SARS. Secondly, is that we'll need special courts to deal with this whole operation, so that next year by March, we must know how many.
Thanks.
how many were convicted, and so on and so forth. But the next meeting, no virtual, please, Chair. Thank you. Security alert.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to hand over to the Honourable Kola Barnard. I've swapped the Honourable Gottsal and the Honourable Kola Barnard due to other commitments. Honourable Kola Barnard.
Thank you very much, Chair. In this matter, my opinion has never changed. For a democracy such as ours to reveal to the world, and we're talking, the previous speaker was speaking about security, many of whom overseas are watching us most carefully in terms of investing or not in our country. For us to seemingly admit that our SAPS, despite their massive budget, are outmanned, outgunned, and often outsmarted by the criminals running rampant here, is to me personally shameful. I've seen the various commissions over the years looking into policing capacity, specifically in the Western Cape and Cape Town Metro, and the conclusions that the undermanning and resourcing was measurable, they were deliberate. And now I know that this refers to those responsible within and without the SAPS before the time of many on this platform. But I've seen so many come and go, and what seems to have been political point-scoring strategy back in the day, today sits like an elephant in the room. It's led to this inevitable end. Now, the world is watching, once again, as we see the SANDF deployed within our borders, because our SAPS have virtually lost the war. The optics are horrific. The various commissions and committees looking into the SAPS today have unearthed information that underscores exactly what we've been saying for nearly 2 decades. Until the SAPS is cleaned up, this will be the inevitable result. And the previous speaker touched on all of that and so much more from his area of expertise in the defense sector. So the sorts of questions that the civilians are asking me, and I'm sure others are, and perhaps you can address them now, relate to the fact that the SANDF members are trained to fight and die in wars. So will they now be shooting and killing civilians? Will they be armed? With what? We all know that any civilian, anyone in this country who is threatened may then defend themselves, but it's a fine line. They are not trained to arrest and take a suspect to court. They're not SAPS members. So what would the legal implications be if an entity which is supposed to work outside of our borders, except in exceptional situations such as assisting in times of floods, is brought in, may I say once again, to do or to supplement the workings of an entity mandated to do quite a different job? So the world watches, and inevitably the militarization of the situation hits our reputation. And I know full well how serious the situation is. There are slaughters of women, children, men. They're reported far, far too often, specifically from the metro area. But our citizens need to know exactly what role the SANDF will play, for how long, exactly, to the day. Look, I have deep respect and a very growing respect for the deep and thoughtful processes the new acting Minister of Police is introducing. So I am feeling hopeful for the first time in a very long time that things may turn around within the SAPS and the whole security cluster as a knock-on result. But what's happening right now is of deep concern to me. And it's almost inconceivable that the SAPS, with their massive, massive budget, has found itself in this situation. But then listen to what's coming out of the commissions and the Madlanga. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kola Barnard. Honourable Gottsal.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all the honourable members and the Minister and other officials. Chair, I would like to ask that we have more details regarding the training which the SANDF did with the SAPS. Mention was made of it, but I think we need a lot more details. I'd like to know, where was this done? When was it done? And what did it entail? Who set up the training, and who did the training? I think those are very important for us as we go forward. I would also like to know, what are the identified hotspot areas and the criteria that is used for this prioritization? Now, I'm specifically asking this in respect of the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape gang deployments. Then I'd also like to know, I think the question was asked earlier, but I don't think it was answered. Is there coordination with the National Prosecuting Authority and the Department of Justice to ensure that cases which the SAPS investigate and which actually go to court move beyond arrest to conviction and quickly? If there is no such plan, the actual arrest of this problem as a whole will not be solved during the deployment period. So if we can please have an answer to that, a clear answer. The acting minister, I'd like to turn to the gang and drug war on the Cape Flats. Now, it is indeed accepted that this deployment is not meant to be a magic bullet. It's meant to stabilize. But I'd like to ask you, what is the plan for the reorganization and the recapitalization which you speak of? When will we see this plan? How long will it take to be implemented? And when will these details be presented to us as MPs? Not just in the Portfolio Committee, but also perhaps the Select Committee on Security and Justice, where we have oversight over more than just police, justice, correctional services, etc. Minister, you also spoke of an FBI period. Now, you referred to the infiltration of the SAPS. How do we fight organized crime, the dismantling of cartels, and that we are not able to dismantle these cartels? Now, right here in Cape Town, in the Athlone police station, there is a police officer who was caught smuggling drugs through a remand detainee to Paulsmoor 6 weeks ago. Now, this police officer has not been suspended. He's still working in the same system, in the same station, with the same network. This is a hotspot area. It serves a community that is ravaged by gang and drug wars. And recently, a 9-month baby died innocently as a result of gang shootings. Now, my question to you is, and please don't get me wrong, I appreciate the high-level plans and your approach, and it's quite encouraging. But there are bigger problems, and they're much simpler to actually address. And so the question then is, why are our provincial police commissioners and provincial management not doing their jobs? Certainly, that is where we need to start while you are implementing and rolling out these plans that you speak of, specifically when it comes to organized crime. Drug smuggling in a court cell in Athlone is as important and is as much part of that network. Then Lieutenant General Mosekile, she did say that there would be accountability when it comes to funding. I would specifically like some answers on the CARA funding. The General briefly touched on the funding of 1 billion rand, which would be made available. But Chairperson, we need details, especially of how CARA funding is going to be used. How exactly will the additional allocations be spent in practice? Is there a breakdown? Will the relevant departments provide, perhaps within the next 14 days in writing to the chairperson of this committee, a proper breakdown by program and by function? What are these programs? Are they directed to strengthen investigative capacity or forensic support? And if not, is it simply there for operational overheads? Now, Chairperson, CARA funding, as I conclude, originates from criminal asset recoveries. So I must insist, through you, Chair, and I'd like to request that we have a structured, regular reporting to Parliament, specifically about our CARA funding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Gotzel. Honourable Mokoena.
Chair, sorry can I excuse myself because unfortunately we are starting and I thought we are here as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Spashana. Honourable Mokoena.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to everyone on the platform. Chair, I am covered by other honourable members. However, I've got one question. I just want to check with the National Commissioner. which criteria did they use to identify the hotspot areas? Because in his opening remarks, he mentioned areas affected by illegal mining in Mpumalanga, that is Babatoni and Pilgrim Rest. But those areas were not included in the prioritized hotspot areas. I just want to know, why are they excluded? Because community in Pilgrim Rest, they are suffering, Chair. They are terrorized and killed by these illegal miners almost on a daily basis. National Commissioner, I just want to know, why are they excluded? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokoena. Then I would like to move to the Honourable Ghana. Honourable Ghana. I'll come back to you. Can I move to the Honourable Parla?
Thank you, Chair. Let me stand on the protocol established. Chair, allow me at the onset to thank you as the chairperson for invitation extended to members of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence to attend this meeting. We are present here, Chair, today as the guest of the Portfolio Committee on Police, and we appreciate the opportunity to observe and engage on matters that has direct implication for both our oversight mandates. Given that the South African Police Service will lead the upcoming deployment to areas affected by gang violence with South African National Defence Force in support as provided for in the Constitution, it is both appropriate and necessary that we listen carefully to the policing perspectives on these operations. This engagement, Chair, is particularly valuable for members of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence as we prepare for our own oversight interaction with the SANDF. Understanding how the police conceptualize the objectives, command arrangement, and operational expectation on this deployment will significantly inform our forthcoming discussions with the military. Effective cooperation between the SAPS and the SANDF and other law enforcement agencies will be essential if the goals of stabilization and crime reduction are to be achieved. At the same time, the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, through engagement with the academia and practitioners, has been a caution about the risks of prolonged or recurring military deployment in support of the police. While such deployment may create short-term operational space for the SAPS, they cannot constitute a permanent solution to an entrenched criminality, which ultimately requires sustained attention to socio-economic drivers of gang violence. In this regard, Chair, the Joint Standing Committee on Defence will, on Friday, engage the SANDF on its preparedness for this deployment. As indicated in our correspondence, members of the Portfolio Committee on Police are warmly invited to attend. That will be our fiscal meeting at Parliament from 9 o'clock. We are looking forward, Chair, to continue cooperation between our committees in exercising rigorous and complementary oversight in the interest of our communities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate it, and we look forward to engaging with you there. I'm going to try one last time with the Honourable Ghana. I'll come back again later. Can I move to the Honourable?
Thanks very much, Chair.
There we go. Honourable Ghana, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. The responses and the presentation. I think the points that I wanted to raise were raised, but I did not get a firm response, and it might be that the meeting on Friday will also respond to this around the let's call it, we know we've got IP'd in a case that, let's say, in the course of this force multiplying, the police were to engage in a shootout with the criminals or they shoot someone. But it's just to say, in an instance where the bullet come actually from the members of the South African National Defence Force, how do we handle that one? That's number one. The second point here that I want to raise, and it's to confirm whether I heard General Masimula correct when he was saying that no, the application that the police, or the motivation that they would have made, was that the presence of the South African National Defence Force also be somehow flexible in this way, that if there is a concentration of a particular kind of crime and the South African Police Service needs the intervention of the South African National Defence Force in a particular area that's not listed, at least they can be allowed to do so. Because I also feel that, I think one of the members had raised this point, that you can have a relocation of criminals and kingpins. So if you are rigid in these people are only going to be in the northern areas of PE, for instance, but then there's a migration of the criminal networks from the northern areas to the other side, that the notice does not stipulate, is that the intervention or the assistance of the South African National Defence Force in that regard will not happen. Just to get that clarity, that this particular deployment will allow for a level of flexibility, and also the target, obviously in the S5 province, the targeting of the hotspots as they emerge, because there are things that at this present moment, on the 4th of March, we do not know what the situation will be on the 8th of September, for instance, to say that if we are seeing a concentration in a particular area, that when we put this deployment, it was not listed, then at least it allows for that flexibility. Just to check with General Masimula in his opening input, whether that is where, from their side, insofar as the motivation is concerned, that's what they were motivating for. The last point, Chair, that I want to raise, and it might be an issue that needs to be confirmed today, but also on Friday. As I hear General Masimula input, is to say that in each and every operation that will be had, the people that will be in charge of that operation will be the police. That this will mean that the South African National Defence Force will not be running operations on their own, or so you cannot have a roadblock that is only manned by the South African National Defence Force at all times. The two, both the South African Police Service and the South African National Defence Force, will be present in each and every operation. I think for me, the important thing is to ensure that there's safety, so that we can retain the investment, but also the trust that South Africans have in the ability of the state to protect them. And I think South Africans right now are looking at the state to protect them and not allow for the squabbling that might sometimes happen between the South African Police Service, the Metro Police, and also the South African National Defence Force. Maybe to that point, Chair, it's to check the involvement of the Metro Police departments in this joint operation. How is that being envisaged, so that we don't have, like we've had turf wars between the South African Police Service, the Metro Police departments, especially in Gauteng, but how do we ensure that they are also part of this operation, so that the government is singing from the same hymn book? Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Ghana. Honourable Noy.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me stand on the protocol established. Just two quick ones, Chair. I firstly want to also agree with Honorable Lekwete, where he said this meeting, for me, it should have been a closed session. I just wonder, some of the information, are we not already, putting ourselves out there to the very same people that are responsible for what is being planned to go and be engaged with. I was very cagey, especially when it comes to slide 4, where it mentions the areas that will be targeted and the focus. That's one. Two, Chair, I just want to put this one as a question, but also as an input, if maybe it might have not been considered. I'm just becoming a spokesperson for local government. In most instances, when such operations are undertaken, you'll find that the local government structures are not involved. Communities will just see patrols of heavy presence of soldiers and police without having been involved. I'm referring here to firstly councillors, and even to a large extent, the very structures that the police work with, the CPFs. It is very much important that such structures which are working with communities should be aware, because before and after, you'll find them after the operation, poor leaders who are on the ground living with these communities cannot provide any answers or offer any assistance where information is required. But in the main, I'm just advocating for their inclusion and consideration when operations are undertaken, because it will be happening where they are actually providing leadership on behalf of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Then the Honourable James, from where we will hand over back to SAPS. Honourable James.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all the honourable members on the platform. Now, my concern, number one, is are we going to go into these communities and criminalise the entire community by making hundreds of arrests so that stats can look good and overlook the kingpins and the drug dealers? So we must just be clear, because I've seen some of these operations before where at the end of the day, we get reports that thousands of arrests has been made, but the drug dealers are still operating in the area. So that is just my first concern. My questions are as follows. Will we see designated and specialized detectives to deal with the accelerated caseload? The many murder cases that's also outstanding, that has been standing still in our communities where SAPS hasn't gotten back to families, will that also be looked into? And will we also do suspect tracing? The second question is, our forensic labs capacitated to deal with the influx of exhibits, or are we going to find that drugs will be confiscated and just be in those labs for another 3 to 4 years based on what we have heard, right? So are our labs capacitated? Has there been engagement with NPA, right, to prioritize, and I think this question was asked, to prioritize cases resulting from this operation? And I think I've spoken to the Minister about this, to engage the Minister of Justice and say that we need to have special courts in each of these areas so that cases can be prioritized and it can actually move. How will the shutting down of Pela Posa? Now, Pela Posa, as we all know or may not know, these lolly lounges in these areas, right? How will those be dealt with? Because those are basically illegal smoking hubs. Has intelligence been gathered on these places where you have many minors smoking and dealing from these places, right? How will minors in conflict with the law be dealt with? We find that most of these gangsters in our communities are below the age of 18. Are we just going to process them and give them criminal records? What is the plan in place to deal with children and minors in conflict with the law? Do we have the Department of Social Development on board so that we can have social workers to process these cases? Do we have the Department of Education on board? Because you would find that on the Cape Flats, all of those children that's meant to be in schools are actually the criminals. Are we going to be arresting all of those children? Also, will the deployment address gangs in school? As things stand, and if you look at your case studies, there's a lot of gangs in schools where we know that the one section is for this gang, and has that been identified? And how are we going to deal with those gangsters that are in our schools to detect firearms as well as drugs? Because we know on the Cape Flats, these children actually take guns to school, right? The 1 year deployment that I read in the presentation, how will this 1 year deployment work? Will we see soldiers in Mitchell's Plain for a year, every day for a year, or will it be a deployment over a year, split up into the different areas? Can we get clarity on that, please? Minister, you mentioned earlier on a whole of government approach, right? Have you engaged actually your sister departments and ministers such as Justice, DSD, Health, Education, Sports and Rec? And I'm going to say this again, this is going to be a wasteful exercise if you are not going to include. We understand that SAPS has a primary focus when it comes to arrest and obviously making sure that our streets are clean of drugs and so forth. But in order for us to actually have an impact in these communities, we do need a whole of government approach. Without DSD, without health, without sports and rec, we're not going to see an impact. Also, when drugs run dry in our communities, we have people that can possibly die from withdrawals. What are we saying about that? Okay, and then also in terms of supply reduction, as per the National Drug Master Plan, which is the responsibility of SAPS, do we also have somewhere in this presentation or in this deployment a wing that is going to focus on the emerging drugs and the emerging trends within our communities? Also, engagement with communities. Right now, I can tell you, I've received so many calls from communities asking and saying, you know what, are they going to come in? Are they going to manhandle our children? Are we going to see our, doors being broken down? Have we engaged communities? Have we roped in the NGOs working with gangs and with drugs to help us actually find where these drug spots are located? I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable James. I then hand over back to General Masemola and the team for the relevant response. General Masemola.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. Starting with Reverend Mishra's questions, where he said SAPS is failing. We are not failing. We are going to work with the SANDF. We're going to work together. If we were failing, we would have been saying, we sit back, SANDF, go and do the job alone. But we are working with the SANDF. They are complementing us in the exercise of the work that we will be doing. The SANDF, when they are employed, they do have certain limited powers, those of arrest when crime is committed in their presence. Like, of course, a civilian do have powers in terms of Section 42 of the Criminal Procedure Act, but they have a little bit more than that. When they are working with us, they do have powers. They can arrest and hand over. They don't hand over tomorrow. They must hand over any arrested person or any confiscated exhibit immediately to the police. So we do not see a problem in that regard because they will be working together with the SANDF. We don't see a problem of handing over taking long, but the rule is they must hand over immediately in case either they arrest somebody or they confiscate any exhibit or article. We do need SANDF, especially around deployment within the mining areas. I'm sure members are aware that the people, the Zamazamas or the illegal miners that are there, which some people call them other names, but they remain illegal miners. They are quite heavily armed, and we don't expect that when they fire at police or fire the SANDF will fold their arms. They are quite heavily armed. So that's where we need them to assist us. The heavy machinery that is being spoke about as to how the heavy machinery got where it was. Honorable Meshwe, I think coming from Northwest probably might know areas like Bapong and other areas in Northwest, how those machineries get there. Normally you find this next to the mining areas. This illegal mining take place in most cases closer where there is a legal mining. So machinery gets there as if it's going for the legal mining, but eventually becomes used for illegal mining. And of course, we should know that South African Police Service are not experts in mining matters. We don't know how to read the mining map. How far is the area for a specific mining company, how far it is. And those are some of the challenges that are on the ground, because that is the expertise of the Department of Mining and Petroleum Resources. They are the ones that will know better whether is this area still falls under this specific mine or is legal mining. So we learn as we go along with them, like in Bapong, they are mining within an area where a legal mining is supposed to have happened. But they just pulled it extra to end up mining within the community. So on face value, it won't be easy for any member to know what exactly is happening. But we are cooperating with the department, and they are assisting us in terms of understanding the variables in terms of this mining environment. Well, on the question of Honorable Schlembe, when are you going to see SAPS doing his work alone? We are currently doing the work alone while having the challenges that you see coming out of the commissions. We are still doing the work, and slowly we are making inroads in the fight against crime. But however, we should acknowledge that we are using the numbers that we have to fight the crime. But also taking into account, Honorable Schlembe, that some of the answers we do give with limitations, because answering fully might just as well defeat the purpose of what we are doing. We at SAPS in 2010, Honorable Schlembe, we had 200,000 police members. And as we speak now, we are around 170, 175. And now in 2026, vis-a-vis in 2010, the growth of the population in every other populations or visitors that come to the country. So the numbers will not always be in our favor, have sufficient numbers to be able to be everywhere. And we are thankful for the past 3 years where we get 10,000 each. But of course, don't also remember every year the turnover is 6,000, meaning the net gain out of 3,000, the net gain each year is about 4,000. And that is still carrying on, even though now we are employing no more 10,000, but we are employing 2,000 and 5,000 and so on. So we are aware that we won't be at sufficient enough but we must use what we have. And if we have an extra hand that can assist us, that will be really be used to the advantage for fighting crime in the country. Long-term reform, I think the Minister did speak about that, which we are currently busy looking at which areas require reform in terms of its detectives and intelligence, and especially more the investigation. We are busy as we start this implementation of the new organized crime strategy. There are engagements there that we are doing with a view to reform the environment. And talking to convictions, I did say that our organized crime strategy, I spoke about dimensions. With those dimensions, we have teams of detectives and specialized detectives with prosecutors that will be guiding them. And that's not for general purposes. Each team will have that capacity. And we did discuss about prioritization of matters by the Department of Justice, because the organized crime strategy is not SAPS alone. It's the whole JCPS cluster that is involved, from SARS, Justice, FIC, Correctional Services, SSA, a lot of other departments that are involved. It's not only the ACPS that is doing this. So everybody is involved, and everybody is doing his or her job in terms of prioritization of cases, in terms of prosecutor-guided investigation, and so on and so on. On the matter of intelligence failures, yes, we are in the process of reforming the environment. We are vetting all SMS members, and that is currently being done. Vetting of security companies, Honorable Chairperson, we do have SIRA as part of JCPS. They are part of the panel. We will look into those security companies. We do agree, yes, we have seen it, that a lot of things are done under the name of security companies, which then is used for other things that one might not allude to all of them. There was a matter around, or the details around joint training, Honorable Gottsel. Yeah, I'm sure at some point we can have opportunity, we can talk more details on that at the right platform. We can engage on those details. The criteria for hotspots, right at the beginning, I said when we submitted papers, we quoted 3 provinces. I said Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Northwest, and Western Cape. And then I further said we submitted supplementary papers to include any other hotspots in the country. So you will not see SANDF all over the country. But yes, we will identify hotspots where we'll deploy, for example, like I said, like your Barberton and Pilgrim's Rest. Already they will also be covered. Not only that, I'm just making an example, but there are other areas that we will deploy. Unfortunately, when we submitted papers, this presentation was already done for the rest of the country, and especially more in where they will be, where we identify hotspot areas. Honorable Gottsel, the member at Athlone that smuggled drugs, the member has been suspended. As you're aware, you know, workers do have rights. It just don't happen then you suspend immediately. You first have to get reports, and in that process, when you are already collating reports, the member will be moved to some other places of work. And immediately the paperwork is done, the member then get either temporarily transferred or suspended. In this regard, the member concerned that you spoke about is on suspension as we speak. The departmental processes are being finalized in that regard. The details on the 1 billion rand budget, we will at some point be able to provide that. We wouldn't have a problem with that. And the Pilgrim's Rest, I think I spoke about that. Honorable Gunners, on the issue of SANDF, when SANDF do crime in the public spaces, South African Police Service, the detectives, they do investigate that crime. If it's in the military premises, depending what it is, military police do have jurisdiction in certain areas, but in public spaces, we do investigate those crimes. And of course, military police, they've got a role that they do for their purposes. They will also do their investigation for their purposes, but all in all, SAPS will do investigation. I think I answered already on the question of flexibility around the use. As I said, we are not going to see SANDF uniform all over the country. However, as and when specific areas that we identified, we will deploy, as I've indicated earlier. Who's in charge of the operation? SAPS is in charge of the operation, and SAPS is in charge of the operation, and SANDF is supporting. But as I said, where a member of the SANDF does something which requires accountability that is outright out of our operational SOP, then that specific member and or SANDF will account for that specific member. We do work with Metro Police. We do joint operations with Metro Police. Yes, now and then, of course, you will find them doing their 1 or 2 or 3 men roadblocks, but we do joint planned operation with all Metro Police and all municipal police in the country. Local communities and CPFs, we will engage them. And maybe I might have forgot the issue of joint training. The details of that joint training is currently taking place. Of course, some members of the SANDF, remember, they are not new to this type of deployment. We did deployment about 4 years ago, so the SOP is still the same. Some members, they still know. But however, where there are new members, we are retraining them. We are working on those details. Once they are trained jointly, then they will be deployed. The forensic, whether they will be ready to absorb. Yes, Honorable James, we did add some numbers at forensics. We know that it's not about them getting in today and running tomorrow, but most of the problem that created backlog there was not necessarily, to an extent, shortage of personnel does, but in most cases, it's more about the infrastructure. Either there is no water for a week, or there is a leakage in a building, the building gets closed. Those are the challenges that create such a problem, and all the flooding in of the lab in KZN. But now we have the lab in Mayville. I was there yesterday to see it. It's actually 80% running. We will be finalizing other areas so that the lab can be fully functional. But it is already functioning, but as I say, about 75 to 80% for now. But we will get it running soon. Yeah, I think the question of Honorable James, will we see SANDF every day in Michelle's plane? It's quite a very technical question, this one. We will be deploying, yes, in Cape Flats. We are not saying you'll see a soldier every street because we don't have those numbers. But however, the deployment will be there. It won't be a timely deployment where that will come as when it's expected. But we will deploy tactically according to the schedules of the operational commanders. And again, once more, as I said, while this stabilization is happening, organized crime specialized units with specialist prosecutors will be concentrating on the specific investigation of be it gangs, extortion, hijacking of trucks and of vehicles, and CIT and other crimes. That's the objective. Let me ask General Msikiri if there's anything to add. General Msikiri.
Thank you, National Commissioner. Chairperson, I think it's only few items. I think the question of the SANDF and powers generally, you have outlined it sufficiently, that the protocols that we spoke about on the presentations is outlining the do's and the don'ts, and this plan and those protocols were done in consultation, and not only with SANDF, but with other departments as well. And the expected time frame of the plan, the history will dictate that at times we plan for specific months, in this case, 13 months, of which one of the 13 is dedicated for training, for taking the members in terms of assessment and identification of the deployed so that the necessary security assessment can be done to those members that will be deployed, and excluding those that will be doing the visibility, the level of assessment will be determined by who is deployed where. So I can give committees an assurance that members that will be deployed will go rigorous assessment to ensure that the right people are employed. There was a question from Honorable Muyela in regards to litigation. On the broader plan, Chairperson, that the request was made that there are certain details of the plan that will not want to expose at certain platforms that will include what is entailed in the broader plan, where specific details have been outlined regarding what department will do what. I think most of the members were even giving examples of the departments that need to be considered. That consideration have been made on the broader plan, Chairperson, that it's organized crime plan. It outlines who and what would be expected of them, including other departments that were not mentioned. A consideration needs to be made that when the government adopted the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy, it looked at the whole of government and whole of society approach. Therefore, when the development of these improved plans was considered, it looked at what is it that needs to be done, assessment that has been done on some of the identified gaps, and the departments that need to be part of this particular plan have been identified. So we have covered all the departments, all the metro police departments, all the community structures, all the CPF structures,
are on board, and they will continue to be on board as and when we continue with the implementation of the plan. And there were requests that we need to give a detailed plan. Chairperson, I think even some of the members have indicated that there are certain areas that we cannot expose in certain platforms. Not only platforms, but I think the tactical issues, can they be left with the plan, but with the operators, but the accountability will be provided as to what is it that has been done. That it's also going to be protecting members, that should the plan not work, we are not going to be blaming that it's because the exposed plan was leaked on certain platforms. Therefore, we are not going to be successful in these particular plans. The issues of members exposing themselves at areas in uniform and so forth, I think it's part and parcel of what lies with the commanders in terms of command and patrol. And it will remain the responsibility of the operational commanders to ensure that they account on the members and where their members are at any given time. If there is a need for a departmental investigation with the deployment of different departments, because I can hear that we're supposed to give that broader plan that will exactly give what other departments are doing, what this extrapolation of specifics in terms of the deployment of the SANDF is. So I need to give the assurance that the plan includes everybody, including the expectation that needs to be taken care of by specific departments in terms of their own protocols. In conclusion, Chairperson, because a lot of issues have been covered by the National Commissioner, it's on the issues of the litigations. DOJ we have work streams on the broader plan that outlines and has taken care of as and when the plan is implemented. We look at all the legal instruments that are applicable, and as and when the litigations are experienced by any of the departments, the team that is working on legal and regulatory framework will be the one that is dealing with other matters and advising the operatives on what is expected of them and how the response, including going to ensure that the court processes in terms of litigations are taken into consideration. And I can assure the team that in terms of the implementation of any other plans and strategies that is on the conventional and normal day-to-day of any of these departments that have been identified outside of this plan, those operations will still continue. This includes the issues of engaging the schools safety plans will continue as normal while we are looking at this. But I think some of the issues is to also take a note of some of the comments and advice that have been given for enhancement of plan and other plans and the implementation of those that will be required on the existing plans. Chair, thank you very much, and thanks to the members for the guidance as well in some of the areas. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, General Musikidi and General Masemola. I just quickly want to say, I quickly checked that member in Athlone was still working last night. So he must have then been suspended this morning, but up until last night, he was still at the station. And then just one more follow-up, just a comment. That member, that was the video that was widely circulating of a member putting cash on during a raid in his pocket of his uniform. According to me, up until recently, unless also suspended in the last day or two, that member is still also working and reports to 35 or at 35 Squadron with Shanela. So that's also a potential another one to follow up. Before I hand over to Acting Minister Kachalia for closing remarks, before we need to move, I know there's several other committees ongoing. I see there's a question of clarity from the Honourable Gotzel. Honourable Gotzel?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Just two things. General Masimola referred to the criteria, which I had a question about, but my question was not what provinces. We know what provinces. It was announced by the President and it was announced by the Acting Police Commissioner. My question was, what are the criteria to decide where these hotspots are? So when you come to the city of Cape Town, on the Cape Flats, which areas will you be covering? If you cannot tell us now, the question is, what are the criteria that will determine these hotspot areas? How are you going to choose whether you're going to cover Lavender Hill or Manenberg, or whether you're going to go to Atlantis? And then the other question, which I didn't receive an answer on, and which is very critical, is the training. The question was, when was the training done? Where was it done? And by whom? I believe that the deployment was meant to start on the 1st of March. Did that training commence on the 1st of March? Is it still ongoing? Until when will they be trained? All of those information, that is critical. We need to know about the training of the SANDF members so that we know that they can properly slot in this role that they are meant to fulfill. Thank you, Chairperson. Sorry. And then the other thing was just, again, the funding. We need clear timelines and we need to be assured that there will be constant feedback to a parliamentary committee about how the funds are going to be spent, especially CARA funding.
Thank you, Honourable Gotzel. I would like to ask Minister Kachalia possibly that he can answer some of those, but maybe I should go to General Masemola first before we go to closing remarks from Mr. Kachalia. General Masemola.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. Well, I called the Provincial Commissioner earlier. That's the one that told me that the member is on suspension, but I'll follow that up, Honourable Chair. That is fine. Chairperson, on the criteria, we have areas where we have rife gang violence that is rife. So those are the areas that we are going to deploy. Yeah, we might not want to say too much details, but we know which areas have got gang violence in the Cape Flats, Honourable Chair, and we know which areas have got the illicit mining areas, where in Northwest, in Free State, Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga. Those are the areas where we are going to deploy. That's the criteria, where there is illicit mining and where there is gang violence. And in Gauteng, we know which areas have got gang violence. At some point, maybe we'll come and give you list by list. I might not list all the areas for now, but the criteria was those that the criteria was illicit mining and gang violence. Thanks. Joint training. We have our division training. They are the ones that Honourable Chairperson are going to be giving the training. All those arrangements for training are on the go now as we speak. Of course, it will differ from province to province, but there is going to take place as we speak now. And as I said, but some areas we have members of SANDF that we trained before. You might find that they have already deployed, especially like in Gauteng, but in certain provinces, those training is going to take place now, this week and next week, and only once they are ready, then they will be deployed. Budget, yeah, we will do a breakdown and we will come and give to this committee the breakdown of the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Masemola. Acting Minister Kachalia.
So thanks, Chairperson Cameron. So a couple of concluding points. Also take the opportunity to address some of the issues raised by Member Gotzel and Member James. In our preparations for this appearance before the committee, I made it very clear to police management, but of course I don't think they needed that clarification from me, that we will not. So we have to balance the expectations of the public and also the legitimate interest of members of the committee for information and operational security on purely rational law enforcement grounds. We should not be put in a position in accounting to the committee as the police and the army to disclose information which is of use to the criminals that we are confronting. So I concur with those members who have indicated that we should find a mechanism for which balances these two considerations in the way we account to the committee. Secondly, on examples that have been given, I also saw video materials circulating of police officers taking bribes. And this matter of a police officer at Athlone concerns allegations of criminal behavior. Clearly, the legislative, the regulatory framework which protects the legitimate rights of members of any institution, the labor rights of have to be balanced with in situations where there are disciplinary allegations of misconduct and where there are allegations of criminal misconduct. And in the latter, I think there is a case for suspension, punitive suspensions, and certainly if a case is proven, members guilty of criminal conduct have to be fired. And this case, this Athlone case, is one that we should monitor. And as I say, I've seen evidence on social media, but I mean, so those matters have to be investigated of police officers taking bribes. We have to set some example. Now, the issue, the issues that Member Gotzel has raised around performance of the police, for instance, of provincial commissioners, and accountability are ongoing challenges. And they have to be addressed going forward. I have we have a MINMEC this coming Friday. And one of the items on the agenda will be how we can strengthen the civilian secretariats at national and provincial level. Because I think that that's an area that has perhaps not been given the attention that was envisaged when the Constitution was adopted in recent years. But that oversight mechanism is critical. I also want to implement a focus on the priority stations where we can hold station commissioners to account for priorities agreed at station level. those are the efforts that the department, that the ministry has to make together with the civilian secretariat to try and deal with such systemic problems. And on this matter, I think, police management, the National Commissioner is on board. So we are taking steps, and the committee needs to hold us accountable for whether or not these steps bear fruit or not. Now, on the budget, I would say that in recent times, in highly fiscally constrained conditions, the police, as well as other components of the criminal justice system, including the military, by the way, have not been adequately funded. But members have to take account of the realities of our economy and our fiscal position. Real per capita spending under these conditions fell, vacancies soared, infrastructure decayed, while state capture hollowed out capability. The private security industry proliferated, gated communities spread, and so forth. Now, in the last SONA address and then the budget speech by Minister Godongwana, I think it's important to see whether or not steps have been taken to remedy these problems that have accumulated over time. The budget speech, in his budget speech, the Minister of Finance reported that 842 billion was being allocated to deal with crime, and as well as strengthening the territorial integrity of the country over the medium term, ending in 2028 to 9. Three elements stand out in that budget. An increase of 11.6% to the South African Police Service in the medium term, with additional funds and resources dedicated towards organized crime, increased investment in the courts and the prosecutorial system, as well as the focus on border security through increased allocations to the Border Management Agency. And then specifically with regard to policing, the Treasury has taken the view that cutting frontline expenditure is self-defeating. This budget maintains levels of recruitment under these fiscally strained conditions, funds the completion of current training intakes, and crucially, ring fences money for specialized organized crime units. So I think what we're seeing with respect to the budget, the approach to security is, if you like, a new paradigm. There is a recognition that the security cluster needs prioritization. I think that's reflected in the budget over the medium term. And I think that's, it's an important shift, this recognition that we need to focus on the security in order to underpin economic growth and our efforts to improve the well-being of our people. To Member James, I think she's on point on all the matters she's raised. The issue of alignment of investigation, which is a policing function, and prosecution. The Commissioner, in his response, indicated that we are trying, but often there's a silo problem to ensure that there's this kind of integration and alignment across the criminal justice system. And certainly in the organized crime strategy, this idea of a prosecution-led model is the effort is to kind of institutionalize it. And in Minister Kubai, I mean, we are definitely aligned in our thinking, and I think the challenge that lies ahead is to ensure that our two departments, the agencies that fall respectively under the South African Police Service and then the Ministry of Justice, are actually working together, you know, in a granular way, in fact, from the bottom up. And that is a challenge. Now, secondly, the all-government approach, which again, Member James is stressing, youth development, service delivery. This is a challenge for departments that fall outside the security cluster and governments at provincial level and at local level have important responsibilities. Now, how do we ensure through the oversight process that there is investment in communities? There's a reason why certain communities face this problem of entrenched gang violence. Ultimately, it does have socioeconomic roots. So a law enforcement paradigm, a narrow law enforcement paradigm, is only part of the answer. So how do we ensure through the oversight process that that your own thinking in Parliament helps government achieve, insists, incentivizes this all government approach? And I think the message, I hope, from this committee generally must now be, yes, you're holding the police accountable, but what you're expecting is that the whole of government focuses on investment in communities, prevention, youth development, and so forth. Because otherwise, I have to say, I think in the long term, we will not succeed. I want to be clear about that. I think law enforcement, which is rightly the focus of this committee, but it's not the whole answer. And in the conversations about illegal mining, there I think the issues of regulation and policy, the whole approach to mining activity in communities that have rich seams. Questions were raised earlier about the responsibilities of the mining companies and so forth. Those issues also have to be tackled. The issues around engagement with communities, Member James, you're on point. I have not specifically, I have to say, raised this particular matter with the National Commissioner when this organized crime strategy and the deployment plan was presented to me. But I think you're right about that. And so it is a matter that I will pay attention to going forward. When I have information on deployments, I will try and ensure that there are community engagements, which I'm doing anyway, where necessary. I want to be clear. I also think that there's a strong emphasis in this committee, quite rightly, on the risks of militarization of communities, and the emphasis being placed on the rule of law, on human rights, on the protection of civilians, and to deploy our law enforcement resources, both the police and the army, in a way which respects their respective mandates and capabilities. Now, so those risks that members have emphasized are real. We have tried in developing the operational plans for this initiative to take account of past experiences, to learn from them, and to mitigate those risks. So really what we're looking for with this deployment of the military is to augment the primary role of the police, the frontline role of the police, with additional strategic capabilities that the army does have in intelligence, for instance, in surveillance. And it's not so much just a boots on the ground approach by flooding communities with soldiers and so forth, because those, of course, will increase the risks of unintended consequences. But I do want to say very clearly to the armed criminals out there, they have to assume the consequences of confronting the police and the army, because they are causing untold misery. They are now not simply making money, they are harming our people. They're killing people. They're killing young children. They're making it impossible for communities to live. So as the Minister of Police, I have to be very clear. We are not taking these steps, without purpose, without determination. We are determined to restore law and order, safety and security in our communities, while we give the police the time it needs to strengthen its response to organized crime. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister Kachalia. Acting Minister, I think I made one mistake in that before allowing you to do the closing or final remarks was to give an opportunity to DM Matale and DM Boshielo. Maybe they would just like to quickly greet in a sentence, and then we can conclude the meeting for the day. DM Boshielo, can I start with you?
Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Minister, dear Matali, General Masamula, honorable members on the platform. I'm here and still alive. I don't have anything to say at the moment. I think everything is covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DM. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us today, DM Matale.
Thank you. Good day to yourself and members, Minister, DM Bushielo, National Commissioner, DNCs, and all the management of SAPS. Thanks for the opportunity. The Minister really and the NATCOM and the team responded appropriately, Chair, and thank you for being so kind to allow us to indicate that we are following the proceedings. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this.
Thank you very much, DM. Minister Kachalia, any final word from you? I see you've unmuted.
No, Chair. Thank you very much to you and to the committee. I think this has been an education experience also for myself and the two deputy ministers, as well as the South African Police Service. We take the democratic process very seriously, and this is how oversight should work. These questions have really assisted us to focus attention on some critical issues. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you to General Masemola, General Musikidi, and the team. The meeting is closed.
Thanks, Honorable
Thank you, Chair.
and members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Uhambe kahle wesihlalo Ivy.